Well, hey, welcome everyone to a Mother's Day special Toolbox Tech Talk. Yeah, it's a little bit different today. So first, acknowledgement to all the mothers in the world. We probably all had one or have one, so it's a really big thing. And today we, a little bit clickbaity title there, why you should buy your mother a solar power system, not a pot plant. But actually, there's some serious logic behind it. You might actually want her to have cheaper electricity. But there's going to be a discussion really about the economics of solar. And I thought I'd bring in my business colleague, good friend and expert on modeling and designing and installing solar. So Laurie, welcome.
Hey, Glenmo. Nice to be with you today.
So what did you do for Mother's Day?
Look, I've got to be honest, my mum's in another country and I've yet to call her. I've been a bit obsessed with our latest little addition to Solar Plus, some 3D mapping. It's very exciting, but I will be on the phone soon. Hang in there, Mum.
You could say, "Oh, sorry, I was doing a Mother's Day special. Sorry, I couldn't call you, Mum."
That's right.
So, a question I get a lot from the public, and certainly when I'm giving public talks, is should I get solar? And how do you answer that question?
Absolutely, yes. Why would you want to miss out? Electricity is really expensive, and doing nothing is a bad economic decision in almost every case. Australia is just a kind of a no-brainer, go solar country, and we're lucky in that respect. We've got a lot of good installers out there. We've got a lot of good options. We've got great price on products. We've got great incentives, great sunshine. Yeah, it's a why wouldn't you thing. And I guess what a lot of installers struggle with is the quality question and getting compared to prices that people may see offered on TV, and having to have that perhaps long and tedious discussion for some installers about why you need to spend a bit more for good quality. So yeah, that's a big issue that we kind of have coming up constantly.
Can I just remind the audience that you're welcome to ask questions. This is actually a live stream, so I can see the chat tweet questions coming in, and I can bring them on screen and we can answer them. So please feel free to put your comments into the comments or field, whichever live stream format you're coming through on. And we'll do our best to answer them. Or you can just say hi or give us a smiley face, a thumbs up, a love heart, whatever, because it is Mother's Day. So yeah, should be lots of good vibes going around. So the other thing I get, Laurie, which is should I, get solar, is what size system should I get? I get that question a lot. How do you address that one?
Yeah, so I guess it's become really common for most offers in solar to provide a 6.6 kilowatt system, and it's kind of the de facto now for residential, unless there's storage, and that's sort of a different scenario.
Why 6.6? Why not 6.7?
Yeah, so 6.6 is kind of a almost accidental convention because of a CEC guidelines rule that installers have to follow, and that has to be followed if you're going to get the STC rebate that comes off the price of a system. So everybody wants that discount, and so as a result, there's a limit on the size of the solar panel array that's going on the roof in relation to the inverter that's going to give you generally 5 kilowatt output for your appliances at home.
Can I just sort of pick apart some of those acronyms? So STC's small scale technology certificates is a federal government incentive program for installing systems below 100 kilowatts, solar, renewable energy systems. PV systems get them on grid or off grid anywhere in Australia, basically. If you use an accredited installer, and the accredited installer has to comply with the CEC guidelines. And there's a guideline for grid connected systems in capital letters without batteries, which says that the AC output of the inverter must be at least 75% of the peak watts of the array, which if you reverse that around is 133% oversizing of your PV array, which is where the 6.6 comes from, because most of the utilities are limiting single phase installations to 5 kilowatts. So 5 kilowatts times 1.33 is 6.666666. So there you go. That's my explainer.
Yeah, and in some ways it makes sense, right? Because the solar panels are putting out so much power, but there's losses that come about through the system. Generally, you're gonna have losses in the range of between 70 and 80%, and so there's really only about 5 kilowatts usable power there from that array anyway. So there's a benefit to the STC program that you're talking about there, Glenn, also in terms of the inspections and the enforcing of quality standards that comes about as a result. So the federal government, through a department called the Clean Energy Regulator, are providing inspections on a random basis, but a large number of inspections across the country for those systems that have been sold with STC discounts off the price. So those inspections mean that, you know, it's just follow up on the installers, and installers are all accredited through the Clean Energy Council, and for the vast majority do a great job and do the right thing and follow the Australian standards, which are, you know, we have some very strong regulatory environment and good in most respects. It is a bit of a burden to installers, and let's be honest, it's a big burden to installers to keep track of all of those regulations and the layers of regulations that they have to deal with. And the Clean Energy Regulator inspections that happen after installations, just an extra layer where they might pick up some things that installers need to follow up on. They might need to go back and make some adjustments to the system, and in some cases they'll consider a system substandard. It's not up to the letter of the law, and in extreme cases they might consider a system unsafe, and that's where they'll immediately make sure that the installer gets onto it, goes out and rectifies the situation.
Hey, Laurie, we've got a fact checker. Thank you, Michael. He's just pointed out, I think you must have said it around the wrong way, that it's 70 to 80% of the DC power is converted. Yeah,
thanks, Michael. Exactly. So, and to some extent that will vary depending on the quality of the components. Maybe we can dig a bit deeper into that as we chat today.
Okay, so the first up, the answer to your my question of should you get solar or not is pretty much always yes, if you are looking at a payback period of a few years. Now that's another consideration. Like, if you're owning the house for 1 year, I imagine it's unlikely. It might add value to the property though, but with modeling we can kind of do the economics, can't we, and make it a more predictable return on investment.
Yeah, that's right. And so one of the benefits with solar is that it is, in most cases, a very reliable investment that you can consider over a lifetime up to 25 or maybe 30, even 30 years. So there are some solar panel manufacturers who provide some performance warranty. So that's a warranty in terms of the actual production of the system over a 30-year period. But most common, it's 25 years, where you've got some guarantee of performance. Now, a few years ago, there were far more manufacturers in the market in Australia. And at that time, there was a lot of mostly Chinese companies who hadn't been around that long, and perhaps you couldn't expect that those companies would be around in another 25 years to guarantee and back up that warranty. But these days, there's far fewer manufacturers going through the process of getting their products certified with the Clean Energy Council. So there is a lot greater reliability in those warranties and in the terms that they're giving them.
Hey, do you realize on the 18th of December this year, there's going to be a big clean out too of inverters because of the requirements for compliance to the 2020 4777 Part 2?
Yeah, so what happens there, Glenn, in terms of changes to inverter requirements?
Well, so there's a new test standard for inverters that connect to the grid, 4777 Part 2, and it was published in 2020, but it was given a 1-year adoption period. So I think it's the 18th of December this year it comes into force. The CEC have already made it clear that any currently approved inverters on their list that are extending beyond that date, their approval date will be wound back to the 18th of December. So they'll need to be tested and relisted as compliant to the new standard. So I imagine a lot will drop off, choose not to relist.
Yeah, so there's a cost to that for manufacturers, and there's certainly some work in maintaining the certification standard for them. I think we are in a good position in terms of the warranties that most manufacturers are providing. There's certainly competition in the market that's pushing manufacturers to extend the product warranty as opposed to the performance warranty, or as well as. So just to clarify, the product warranty is the period for which they will guarantee the product as a whole, as opposed to the output of the system. And so can be anything from mostly 10 to right up to 25 years for product warranty.
Hang on, this is a really good point to make, that you'll see sometimes ads saying 25-year warranty, but it's probably misleading, don't you think?
It is. In many cases, it's not a full 25-year product warranty. It's often a 10-year product warranty with 25 years performance, up to something like 80% of the stated nameplate values, so the power output at the time that it's sold, or that the panel is rated at.
So this is good advice to anyone buying their mum a solar power system, is check the conditions on the warranty. If they're saying something like 25-year warranty, just say, can I see whether that's a performance warranty or a product warranty? Because it's a very different thing. The product warranty is probably what you're most concerned with. Is it going to fall apart? The performance warranty is just that if it does last the distance, it's still going to perform to a certain level.
Yeah, and there's an interesting characteristic about solar panels too, in terms of the way they degrade over, or the degradation in the power output over time. And so most panels will have a short drop off, a fast drop off in production in the first year, and it can be up to 2%. So in some of the performance warranties, there's an allowance for a 2% drop off in power in that first year, and then it levels off. So after that initial reduction in performance, things settle in, and it's just got a lower degradation over the rest of those 25 years, and that might be just 0.5% per year, somewhere around the range generally of 0.3 on the low side for really good quality panels, up to maybe 0.6, 0.65, possibly even a little higher for less quality panels.
So Michael's also got another comment here. He's a big friend of all the mums in the world, because he's pointing out that how do you know that the company's going to be around to honour the warranty? So it's all very well that the product has a warranty. You might want to look at the company's history. How long have they been in business? Are they direct importing? So what happens if there is a failure? Can you go back to the manufacturer? If they have an office in Australia, generally that's yes, you can go back to the manufacturer. But if they're just a direct import with no office in Australia, if that company folds, you've lost your warranty. You can go and try and chase them, but good luck. So that's a good point. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, and actually on that point, Solar Quotes is a provider of sort of a place you can go and get a few quotes, get 3 quotes from different installers in your area for a system. They actually have on their site some really interesting information, lots of good info for someone who's just investigating. They do have a visual of a lot of the brands that they kind of consider trustworthy, and there's a bit of a scale in that graphic for really good reputation, for reliability and company longevity, through to some of the more budget brands where you can still expect your warranty to be honoured, but there might be more cases of panels where there might be a fault over that 25-year period, and you might have to fall back on the warranty.
Yeah, thanks. I just realized I made a spelling mistake when I put that caption on. Sorry, Solar Quotes. You only have one U in AU. There you go. So that's the URL for Solar Quotes that Laurie is just referring to. Yeah, so gosh, so we're on to warranties, performance warranties. There's also something called an express warranty, which is really to do with Australian consumer law, when a company or a person makes a claim that an ordinary person would understand to have a meaning of a guarantee. And so if you get a door-to-door salesman saying these panels will last 30 years, but there's nothing in writing elsewhere, that's actually an express warranty. So, you know, they're supposed to be held to that. It's pretty dodgy though.
Yeah, so in terms of selling techniques, we've seen some pretty appalling things happen in Australia, and it's not only in Australia, but it has been an issue, and certainly an issue for the whole solar industry in terms of its reputation. And it's quite comforting, I guess, to see that a lot of solar installers are signing up for the Clean Energy Council approved retailer program, where they have to commit to a higher standard in terms of their sales techniques, what they put in their marketing, what they put in their quotes. And all in all, we're seeing the result for consumers improving, I think. And you know, there's still the odd player that doesn't do the right thing and gets caught out. But I think that's one of the benefits, that there are people that are being caught out if they're not doing the right thing. And we saw that this week in Victoria, a prominent solar company getting the stick as a result.
Yes, for aggressive sales technique, door-to-door knocking, making unsubstantiated claims. Yep. So it's not unique to solar, by the way. There's this exists in other areas too, but it's one to be aware of. The door-to-door knockers. Now, there's ways that installers and designers can give a much better proposition to those mums out there when they're thinking about getting solar installed, and that would be to use some software, right? So this is a bit of a Dorothy Dixon, a handover to Laurie, because Laurie and I actually have a company called Solar Plus. We produce solar CRM and design software, and it's aimed at solar installers and companies that sell solar. And Laurie's got a little bit of a presentation to show how it works. But just a caveat first, this is not an end user product, and as in if you're buying solar, you wouldn't be using this, but you could expect to have something that gives you a quality proposal, and this is an example of software that can do that. So Laurie, I'm just going to bring up your prezzo there.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so take us through it, Laurie.
Yeah, so I guess what I would say are some of the key benefits for installers in using a software product such as Solar Plus is the ability to keep track and manage your pipeline through the sales process and through the installation process. It's really important that the ball doesn't get dropped on any customer or even just prospects. Managing prospects, seeing who you've got in your sales pipeline, and so that's one of the cool things about something like Solar Plus, where you've got a full customer management system or CRM. You can keep track of all of these customers and where they're at, and you've got a to-do list, so you can manage your communication with the customer and follow up on any quotes. And equally in the installation process, you're able to keep track of where things are at. With all of your quotes, you can, the installations, you can keep track of where they're at. Make sure that every box gets ticked in terms of documentation, checking, and it's followed right through to completion and handover of information for the customer. But one of the really important things is to give a good estimate of the performance of a system and its performance over the lifetime, and therefore be able to see how the offer stacks up financially for the customer and be able to demonstrate it, and give the customer confidence in what you're offering and in your service. So maybe we can just go through and do a quick quote for our mum, because
is this one of these do it in 60-second ones, or are we going to go a little bit slower?
Yeah, maybe take the pressure off today a little bit. It's Sunday, Glenn. I think I could do with just a little more time on this one. So I guess I've just lost the address I was looking for. So let me just.
It starts with just typing in the address of the prospect and using the magic of Google Maps or other mapping services brings up the address and a picture.
Looking for
nice satellite picture.
That's Mum's house, yeah, right.
Yep.
Okay, and yes, installers, you do want to install a system for your mum before one of those less reputable solar companies rings her up and she gets excited and signs up and ends up with a problem that you might have to go out and fix. So do the right thing, sort out your mum with the system. So I'm going through a quote process. We are going to do it fairly quickly. I'm just selecting a tariff. It's going to be a time of use tariff, and an energy consumption profile for the house. I'm going to use a typical profile, but in the best case scenario, you're able to upload interval data from the actual house customer or your mum's energy information from the retailer or the network provider. And in that case, you've got a better basis for the quote and for the performance analysis of the system. But then we can go through and look at the house. We might switch to a nicer option for the panel layout with better imagery.
So just to interrupt, you can use different imagery services?
So there's about 6 different options in Solar Plus, from Google, Nearmap, MetroMap, and a couple of others. And a couple of those are photo map services where you're not dealing with imagery taken from a satellite, which can be a little bit less reliable, less accurate in terms of spatial accuracy. You can see here, I'm trying to get fairly accurate with the size of the surface that I create here in order to have maximum confidence of the panels fitting when I get to the job and look at the actual roof. It gives me a quick indication of a system size that I might want to select here. I'm just going to have a look through some of my options. I'll actually use some good components for Mum. She deserves it. She's put up with a lot in her lifetime. So grabbing that system package, it means I've got a pre-built system there that I can apply here, do the panel layout, and generate a quote without too much time.
You just drag them on, just plop onto the roof, and they just
pretty
fill it
much
up.
Just drag them on. So sometimes you need to knock out a few panels because of some obstructions in the roof.
Skylight, yep.
And it's kind of tracking what you're doing with the panels, so that here it's giving you an indication of when you've got a match between your pre-built system and the system that you're going to lay out. So in some cases here, we might actually want to swap from one surface to another. So there's some nice ways to get that done fairly quickly and keep track of the system size as you go.
Now, I can see that you've put panels on different surfaces, some of which are in different orientations and inclination. Can it deal with that in the software?
Yeah, so for each panel, it's going to do a performance analysis on the surface that it's on, the angle that it's on, and run through them for every panel in its position. So that's one of the benefits of a system like this. We pull in very localized weather data. It's actually a 10 square kilometer grid of weather data across the country. And that means we can get very reliable modeling across the system and across the lifetime of the system.
So by weather data, you mean more than just temperature? You mean solar radiation as well?
It's pulling in the solar radiation data as well as temperature and wind and a whole lot of information about the site. Yeah.
So presumably you could also do sometimes I get the question, is it worth putting panels on the south roof or the west roof or whatever? You can show the performance difference with the software.
Yeah, and there's no in some situations you could even put panels on a south-facing roof, definitely on east and west. In more northern areas of Australia, you can get very good output still from panels on even a south face. So there are a lot of options, and the installer has a lot of ability to swap things up. So having done one quote here for this customer and generated performance analysis already, I could now just duplicate that and switch the panels to different surfaces to run another scenario within a minute or two. So that's one of the advantages also of a software platform. You're not doing things over and over again. You've got that reusability right throughout the system. So we have come into an energy report here where there's lots of information about what happens on an average day, the consumption overall for the site, how much are we still relying on the grid, how much have we covered with solar being used directly during the day, or solar being stored and used overnight, in this case 30%.
Can I, Laurie, just interrupt for a moment because some new people have just joined. So just a reminder for those who've joined, you can ask questions in the comments. So this is a live stream, so it's interactive. We've already had a few come in, so please feel free just to type those in and I can bring them on screen and we can answer your questions live. So, you might go and say, hey, Mum, got any questions about solar? The guys are online right now. So, Laurie, I didn't actually give a really big intro to Laurie, but Laurie and I have known each other for a long time. We used to work together installing solar and designing it. And, the backstory is that over 10 years ago, we were just struggling with manual means of doing solar. We were doing it with spreadsheets and calculators and data sheets, and really it was Laurie's initiative to come up with a better solution. And first, I think the first iteration was a bigger spreadsheet, which probably lasted about a day. He realized that was not going to work, and then we realized that software and certainly using a web-based platform makes it very, very accessible. So that's how Solar Plus came to be. But it's based on the learning of people who've actually worked in the industry, and it's still many of our support staff are actually directly involved in installing solar. So we've got a lot of hands-on experience. So just going back to you, Laurie.
And in terms of us starting out that journey, the Smart Energy Council was an important player in that, and hopefully some of you guys will be heading to Sydney, mask on, for the Smart Energy Conference. So that's very exciting to actually be able to catch up with a lot of people in the industry this week. And the Smart Energy Council have done an amazing job over the years of advocating not only for installers but for consumers, making sure that that the environment for solar generally has been a healthy one. So hats off to them, and I'll be looking forward to catching up with a lot of people in Sydney this week.
Yeah, thanks, Laurie. Hey, I'm going to interrupt your explainer on the software because we've got some more questions coming in now. So here's a good one from Dennis. Is solar worth it for Northwest Tasmania versus more northern locations? I imagine you mean like mainland Australia or that Northern Island. What do you reckon, Laurie?
Yeah, so there's almost everywhere in Australia you're going to find that solar pays for itself in maybe 4 or 5 years. That's kind of the most common across all states. In some states there's extra incentives and you can do even better than that. So absolutely, and then keeping in mind that you've got a system that's producing powers for 25 years or more, there's plenty of reasons to get on board, no matter where you are.
I've got another way of answering that question. Just thinking back, 10 years or more ago, Germany was the leader in terms of the deployment of solar. And if you look at the latitude, because latitude's the main factor that affects solar production, Germany, or certainly northern Germany, is a similar latitude to South Georgia Island, which is covered in snow and ice most in the southern hemisphere. It's way south of Tasmania, and it's the similar latitude to Germany. Yet Germany had this huge installation capacity. It's been well overtaken since then. In fact, Australia is the highest per capita installer of residential solar in the world now, because we are an excellent sunny country. Actually, Tasmania is a sunny place compared to Germany. So as just to reinforce Laurie's point that just about anywhere in Australia, a solar power system will probably pay for itself in a modest period of time, certainly before the product's warranty's up. Laurie, another question. So unless you had a response, Laurie?
Yeah, and just in terms of that too, over those 10 years, the cost of the components, the cost of solar panels particularly, is just dropped dramatically to a point now where they're probably not going to get a whole lot cheaper. They're really great value for the price. And at the same time, a lot of installers, because of the competition from the cut price players, have had to really get more efficient, more lean, and again, that's one of the ways in which software can help to enable installers to do things without so much of that compliance time and effort that has gone on more in the past.
We need to be kind of shouting out that Australia is really good at installing solar as well as using it. So I remember some researchers from the Rocky Mountain Institute in California came to Australia about 7 years ago to find out why solar was so cheap here. They just go, we don't understand how you can do solar so cheap. What the outcome was that we're just really very good at it through experience. We've done a lot of residential solar and now a lot of commercial, but also we're starting to use tools and products that speed up our practices. So to some extent, our roofs help too. If you've ever worked in the US, you know that those shingle roofs are a nightmare to install solar on. But we really should be proud of our industry's quality and performance.
Absolutely. And yeah, we have got incredible capacity in this country, and you've seen the rate of uptake in solar over the years. There are a lot of skilled people out there, not only in solar but now in storage. And I guess a few years ago that was a bit of a concern, where suddenly Tesla were out there promoting Powerwall as the new thing, and a lot of people, suddenly consumers, wanted to jump on board and have a Powerwall next to their front door. And there was a bit of a fear that in the industry, and a reputation risk, I guess, that there weren't enough people that were skilled up and able to get battery systems installed and do it safely. I think credit to the industry bodies and installers themselves for getting in, working on training and understanding the products, what they can do, what they can't do, what's the best product to offer, and the actual practical install know-how and to deliver reliably. And yeah, Glenn, you've provided a lot of support and training to installers all over the country for that too, and a lot of it online like this. So good on you for doing that.
Well, actually, I've got thanks, Laurie. I've got a segue question back to your demonstration, actually, and this is from Edwin. So Edwin says, referring to the report that you were just showing, is this a report based on a default load profile or an actual customer?
Yeah, good question. So in this scenario here, I did just pick up a load profile for expediency, but we can switch back over and grab some actual data for a more realistic one. So what we're looking at here, and this is something that's I think is really important for anyone who is selling battery storage solutions, is being able to drill down, not just looking at average days, but actually drilling down to the model data across and the performance from day to day throughout different periods of the year, and particularly those winter months, any time where the solar production isn't going to be so high. So here we can see a pretty detailed chart, and we can drop some of these values out to break things down. So there we've got the consumption, and as you pointed out, this is just a typical consumption, so it's just a regular usage cycle. We can see the solar generation, and this is where we can see this time of the year in June, there's a lot of intermittency in it, and so the solar drops out very much for one of these days. And so we're looking at a 7-day view here. And in this case, where we kind of start to think about the battery charge, there is no charge in this day. And so what we're able to do is look at the state of charge of the battery. So that's when the battery is topped up and full, when it's being used later in the day and dropping down and not used overnight in this case. So with a view like this, you're able to see what happens when you get a few days, as you may, of low solar output, low solar production, and that battery capacity not being able to ramp up. And certainly with battery storage systems, there's a good argument for getting as much solar on a rooftop as you can, particularly in the southern areas where you're going to experience less solar production in winter months. Another thing that I find really valuable, and we're just passing by a chart here that gives us battery backup hours. So that's an indication of how long a battery is going to last if the grid power drops out in July in this case. But this is a really interesting one for anyone who's considering a battery system, and that is being able to compare their bill before with, and this is for each month of the year, the bill with solar. And so you can see dramatic drop in the build cost in summer months particularly, and then the bill comparison with solar and storage. And so that's an important thing to consider. There's a big benefit in installing solar, and then a lesser benefit in terms of strictly financial terms in most cases with solar and storage. But it's very important to be able to quantify that and give the customer an accurate picture of what their energy bills are going to look like after the system has been installed, and what sort of payback time they might be looking at. And in this case, I've priced a system in a very conservative way, so it's quite an expensive upfront cost and quite some time to pay off.
And just to make the point, Laurie, this is a battery storage system with about a 10-year payback or 11-year payback.
Yeah, that's right.
You could then model it without the storage and see what the payback is equally. So you could do a comparison.
Yeah, that's right. So we can just duplicate that system, drop out the storage, and take a look at the scenario where it is just solar. So I'm just going to switch over to a more detailed view here.
While you're doing that, I've just got another question coming in, so just keep doing it. This is a follow-up question from Edwin. Further to that question, what methods do you use to create the load profile when it's a customer-specific sizing exercise?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were taking that one.
Oh,
Glenn.
sorry.
I'm just focusing on getting this.
Yeah, I can take it. I've just let it hung there for a while. Sorry, Laurie. Yeah. So look, we've got two options. One
Okay.
is you can get customer load data if you can get customer load data, and with the advent of smart meters in many states around Australia, the customer, by request to their electricity distributor, can get the 30-minute interval data from their retailer or from the distributor. That can then be imported directly into Solar Plus. And so we're using the real data and doing modeling based on that. The other option is we've got some predefined load profiles based on, what state you're in, what type of energy use pattern you have. Do you have an electric vehicle? Do you have air conditioning, etc.? And we can use that as a rough guide. So they're the two main methods. How'd I do, Laurie?
Very good. Well done, Glenn. Yes, that's right. And there are several formats that different will come from different sources that allow you to import. And it doesn't matter whether it's, hopefully you've got at least a year of data. But if you don't, it will be extrapolated out to a full year, because in any modeling situation, we're looking at a typical year of data. We're getting a typical year of solar radiation and weather data to do the initial model. And then we're looking at future years and how the performance will taper off a little on the solar, so that you can model on that basis. So let me just come back to the system here. Now, I did switch to some actual data here. So there's variability, but it's not really a typical residential profile. So generally with a residential profile, you're going to have a much higher consumption in that evening period. This is more of a work from home sort of scenario. But yes, it's quite easy to get that actual data in there in order to model it. Now, I did just duplicate the system, drop out the battery system, and just do a very quick rejig rather than selecting another package. In actual fact, we've still got quite an expensive system here. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that we're looking at a $6,000 system as the final price. And really, that's not outrageous. There may be more higher quality products where a system might be more expensive, but I'm just trying to be a little bit realistic here about what might be a fairly common scenario. And so here we see the solar paying itself off in around 4 years, and that's quite common. In this case, we are in New South Wales with this system. Oh, or is it?
Wow, that's quick. Okay, 4 years. While you're looking, I just want to make a point that there was a piece of research done by Renew, which used to be called the Alternative Technology Association, of their members' systems, to find out, what the financial benefit to them was and what the sort of analysis they could make of different sized systems. And the report really tells you the answer. The report was titled "Bigger is Better," because it identifies that solar has got incentives on the solar panels, not on the balance of system like the inverter or the racking or the labor. So really putting in a 1 kilowatt system or a 6.6 kilowatt system, there's a similar amount of work involved. Certainly it's still one inverter, it's still running a cable to the roof, it's still work like the switchboard, whether it's a 1 kilowatt system or a 6.6 kilowatt system. So you get a much better return on your investment the bigger it is, even if you don't use the energy. If that energy is being spilled to the grid and you're not getting a very good feed-in tariff, which is pretty much the norm these days, then you're still covering yourself in terms of electricity consumption most of the time. For many people, a 6.6 kilowatt system will cover a large proportion of their self-use during daylight hours. And so that's why the payback looks so good.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point, Glenn, about the solar export. In Australia, there is very little to be gained by exporting that extra solar to the grid, and that's where batteries are a good use of that energy. And you're offsetting more coal-generated energy as a result. There's commonly limits on how much can be exported as well. So even if you have just got a solar system, it's important to also model the export and consider whether there's any value in it, how much value, and that also will affect the payback for the customer and the overall value of the proposition.
We've got another question, also from Dennis again. Thanks, Dennis. I'll take this one. Are commercial, i.e. 400 watt panels available for residential use? Really, there's no restriction on which panels you can use. It comes down to the design and whether they suit the roof size, layout, the voltage and current ratings of the products that you connect them to. Using a physically bigger panel may or may not be an advantage. Certainly with the batten spacings on a corrugated iron roof, bigger panels can present some mounting challenges because of what's known as the clamp zones on the panels themselves, where you're allowed to attach and therefore where the underlying rails are going to be seated. So this is where your installer would need to be consulted. Certainly using software, you can bring those panels onto the roof, as you saw Laurie just doing it then, because we actually have the imagery data and also the measurement data for the panel. So when you select a panel, it's the actual panel that's being laid out on that roof. So we've got all the measurements correct. And it allows for parallax, the error based on the tilt angle of the panel versus what you're looking down from space. So it does give a very accurate representation. I guess in summary, you'd have to ask yourself, is it suitable and why would you use commercial panels? But it's not unknown. Thanks, Dennis. Laurie, you've got a bit more to show us, haven't you? So maybe I'll just bring up your screen. Here we go.
Yeah, so one of the, we probably don't have enough time to go into too much detail with this one, but in software like Solar Plus, you can also model off-grid power systems, which is quite a different game in many respects in terms of the modeling, because you're talking about probably a diesel generator as a backup. And that's one of the important things, is knowing when a diesel generator is going to be coming online. And in Solar Plus, you can analyze the monthly runtime of that generator, so you can get a very good picture of the generator reliance, what sort of cost, because generators are an expensive thing to run, but also importantly, just being able to look at that detailed view of load profile versus solar versus battery supply and battery state of charge. This is one thing that I find quite useful to do that. And here we can look at the monthly consumption. In this case, the solar production, and as a result, the grid supply, or in the case of an off-grid system, the generator supply and the generator runtime. Or here the solar export. So having all of those metrics, measurements, and details at your fingertips is pretty invaluable if you're pitching a system to a customer, and it is important to be able to answer their questions well. We could step in, Glenn, if you like, into a few things that installers might face and things that might be helpful in terms of sales, but also just generally some of the things that it can be headaches for installers, and that also software will help with. We talked a little bit about tracking. That is something that nobody wants, is to feel like in their business they're dropping the ball on some things, not following up with either leads, or definitely not dropping the ball on any of the installation tracking and compliance documentation.
Hey, Laurie, I might just interrupt you there for a sec. So we're coming towards the top of the hour, and anyone who's still got questions, it's a good chance to ask them now. So please feel free to drop those questions into the comments field, and you can have your questions answered live. Another plug for the Smart Energy Conference, the Smart Energy Expo run by the Smart Energy Council at Darling Harbour in Sydney this coming week on Wednesday and Thursday. It's open to the public as well as industry people. It's a great chance to see all the product that's out there on the market, to talk and to the companies that sell that product and ask all the hard questions. So yeah, rock up there. That's Wednesday, Thursday this coming week, Darling Harbour at the ICC. What's ICC stand for again?
Well, it's at the conference centre in Darling Harbour anyway.
Yeah. Maybe it's just something like International Conference Centre. I think that might be what. Yeah. No, it's just ICC. Anyway, that's where it's being held. So so just back to you, Laurie, and just making some strong points about as a designer and installer selling solar.
Yeah, let's come back to sales for a minute. Not following up fast enough. It's a big one in terms of conversions, particularly. So we don't have a lot of research on this in Australia, but out of the States, there's some really interesting stats in terms of sales and up to 200% conversion increase if a quote is out to a customer in minutes. That might be a big ask, but it can be done. Even 17% conversion increase within a day. So getting that information out to customers quickly is really important, and having those system packages all pre-built and ready to go is a way to do that. Sometimes it can be take a little more time, but it's worth asking the customer questions about, what have you learned so far in your research? And you probably find out if they've already got quotes, and maybe even how much they are, and what their priorities are. Are they energy conscious, and are they driven by reducing their coal energy use? In which case you might have a different solution for them, as opposed to someone who's purely interested for financial reasons. And work on educating the customer, and that's a good part of the value, and builds that relationship with them. This is an interesting one too, not maintaining contact for long enough. If the average time, and this was a few years ago, admittedly, in this research, the average time to commit from when a consumer first started thinking about solar to when they actually committed and purchased was 9 months. So that's a long time to be keeping track. There are ways with something like Solar Plus to apply tags and use email templates to just keep reaching out and until that customer is ready to move.
Hey, that's really interesting. That customers want a response within a day, but then it might take 9 months to make up their mind.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty challenging for an installer to manage that. So you have to have those systems ready to go and repeatable in order to do it painlessly, I think. It is important to tell a story in your own way. So in our system, we've got out-of-the-box proposals that you can get up and running within a day or two, but you can also customize them to tell the story you want to tell in your own way, or just have different proposals ready for different types of customer. It's also some things that you might need to address in terms of common customer objections. So there are some people that feel that solar is ugly, so you might want to just present a nice, beautiful picture of the array on the rooftop, and that's where it is worth spending a little bit more on some good quality imagery from Nearmap or MetroMap, as we provide to get that done. And you know, there's the expense thing. Now there's more and more choices available to installers as well as to consumers to help provide that choice to customers between cash and finance. And a lot of this is about helping the customer gain confidence to make that decision. It's a bit of a leap into the unknown for a lot of consumers. So demonstrating with good energy modeling is a great way to provide that confidence. Here's a big thing that a lot of installers struggle with, and it sounded like it would be much cheaper on the ads I've seen. You know, so on TV or maybe on Facebook, people will be seeing ads for really cheap solar systems. But it's worth reminding people that, yes, there's cheap. Yes, it might be attractive, but just like buying a cheap car, there's a high likelihood of regret. So we want to offer you a high likelihood of satisfaction. That's why we're providing you a quote with a reasonable price for a good quality system. So maybe I should pull up there, Glenn, and we have reached the hour mark.
Yes. Thanks, Laurie. Hey, you did have one little sneak peek of a new feature, which I thought we'd probably finish with. Is that available for you to show everyone?
Yeah, look, and I have to admit that I haven't called my mum yet, and she's in another country. I've got to get on the phone after this session, but I've been obsessed today with a cool new feature in Solar Plus. We talked about showing solar in its best light, and in terms of the panel layout, we can now switch through different types of panels to show a really attractive image of the rooftop. But also we're just about to release a new 3D mapping update to Solar Plus. So in terms of shading and particularly commercial systems, it's really great to be able to generate that 3D imagery, work out spacing between rows of panels, and get your customer excited with some 3D views of the install going on their rooftop. Fun. I love this stuff.
I can see why you haven't called your mum. But you're going to have to just chill out for a little bit and take your hands off the keyboard and get them onto that mobile phone and make that call. So I think we might...
And I'll give her a quote at the same time. How about that?
Good on you. I might be able to hook up some New Zealand installers for you. So yeah, we'll see how we go. So I might just do the wrap there and do the outro. So thanks very much for showing us that, Laurie.
Good to chat with you, Glemmo. Thanks.
And we'll both be in Sydney next week at the Smart Energy Expo. So you can always rock up to booth 69 and we'll be there with our special prize. Oh, nearly forgot. Oh. Yeah, good.
Yes.
Who doesn't want a new laptop?
If you want a MacBook Air M1 super duper new Mac processor, come along to the Smart Energy Council conference and come and see us at the Solar Plus stand 69. We'll get you organized to be in the prize for that baby. Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad I remembered that one. All right. Well, I'll let you get back to that phone call.
Cool. Thanks, Glenn.
See you, Laurie. Well, thanks everyone for joining me and Laurie for a Mother's Day special Toolbox Tech Talk. Now, just as part of the outro, just like to tell you about a few other things that are happening. I also run a lot of training online, so I do have a battery standards crash course. It was super popular, the last one I ran, which is all about the new battery standard, AS5139, ASNZS 5139, and I'm running the next one in June, the 16th and 17th of June. You can find all out about it by going to my website, or just check out some of the training that's available for free on the Smart Energy Lab YouTube channel. So that's where I provide a lot of free content on a weekly basis. But if you want a more in-depth training course, you can come along to my battery standards crash course, the 16th and 17th of June. Just go to solarequip.com and you can register there. So that's it for today. Thanks, everyone. I'll be back next Sunday for another Toolbox Tech Talk. So see ya.